Guys now in the locker room in the last probably 5 to 6 years have been saying, hey, I'm investing in this stock, I'm investing in this crypto, I'm investing in this, I'm doing this, I'm working with this company, I got equity in this company for this partnership and doing those different things. So the whole landscape has changed.
Welcome to another episode of Nasdaq's The Winning Formula, presented by the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. I am your host, Joel Kalani. We have an amazing guest today. Five-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, menace to quarterbacks for over a decade, Mr. Ndamukong Suh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. You doing good?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I obviously got to spend some time with my guy Jabari, not only on my podcast, but obviously in person, being able to join here at the Nasdaq.
Yeah, absolutely. So, retirement.
Yeah.
Let's start there,
Yeah.
and we'll go backwards. Retirement, something you recently announced.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to kind of ask a question around retirement and how that's been going, how it's been treating you, but also you're still a very busy person.
Yeah.
How you've kind of migrated into retirement. And speaking with Steve Young in an interview previously, he said there's a mourning that occurs after you retire and then transition well into business. How has it been for you?
Steve Young is 100% right. And there is definitely a mourning when it comes to leaving something that has been a part of your identity for such a long period of time. I played in the NFL for 13 years, but played football for the last 20 years of my life. And so it's something that you're so ingrained to that and having that a part of your everyday. But ultimately, it was something that I started building since I was really in college, and really having the understanding of, like, not only did I want to get to college for the opportunity to have a scholarship, to get my degree, and then go back home and add the vision to my dad's business, but it was understanding, like, sports aren't forever. And I didn't even know if I was going to make it to the NFL and have that opportunity to let play 1 year, let alone play 13 years. And so both my parents, my mom being a teacher, my dad being an engineer, they were like, education, understand what you want to do. And so I've always kind of had that mindset of make sure you always have something on the back burner ready to go, because sports will be taken away from you, whether somebody fires you, where I've been cut once in my life in the NFL, and or you have a massive injury. And then it's not your choice. You just physically can't do it anymore.
You just mentioned this. Was there a moment after you, obviously second pick in the 2010 draft to the Lions, was there a moment when you were drafted, was rookie season, maybe sophomore season, where you had a game or a series of games where you're like, I think I'll be here a while? Was there a moment where it slowed down for you?
Yeah.
Or, some athletes say there was a moment where it's like, oh, I picked something up, or I start to catch consistencies.
I remember this vividly. So my best friend from college, my boy David Harvey, he works for the Houston Rockets right now. I remember, like, he looked at me dead in my eyes, and this was our junior year in college. And he was like, man, you are that dude. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, man, look what you just did. You just took back an interception for a touchdown. Like, you're having a crazy year. And, like, we were so tight, so we just having the most frank conversations. And I was like, I guess, like, cool. And, like, he's like, bro, you're up for the Heisman. Like, as a junior, like, you have these opportunities, and even as a senior, and all these different things. And so it was interesting for him to, like, point out that, and somebody who I really trusted, like, all right, you really have an opportunity to get to the league. And then even a little bit before that, there was a guy named Jay Moore and Adam Carricker. I can do everything he's did on the field, but then also at the same time, like, I had more time behind it. And he was a senior at the time. And so it was a little bit of an insight to that I had an ability to get to the next level.
Thinking about the Heisman, you finished fourth in voting as an offensive player, outrageously rare. Would you say there was a time where, let's say in the 2010s, that you start to have a moment of, okay, I'm here, I'm consistent, now I can start to pick where I play.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can start to kind of manifest my own destiny. A lot of times athletes don't feel like all the cards are in their hands, but for yourself as a dominant defensive player, did you start to feel that come about in your career after your first contract?
Being a rookie, obviously you get drafted by a team, you don't really have a decision-making power of where you're gonna go. It's really just a blessing to be able to be in the league at that particular point in time. And I wasn't happy about getting drafted by Detroit. I had the inkling of that Tampa had told me that, hey, we're gonna come up and get you, but I didn't know that Detroit loved me so much that we're gonna let me get past the second pick. And so living my life through the lens of everything happens for a reason, I really embraced that, especially at that point in time where I really didn't know why this particular reason I was drafted to go to Detroit, other than it was a city that obviously was struggling from a football perspective, even struggling from a community perspective. But those people in that city embraced me, and they looked at me as somebody, as a savior, which I embraced and wanted to be that for them. And till this day, I get so much love when I go back to that city and love every inch and part of it and whatnot. But ultimately, yes, to answer your question, there was a point in time where I said, I want to be in this city. I want to be a cornerstone of this organization, but a business is a business. And the organization didn't see that as an opportunity and wanting to keep me. And I gave them hand over fist opportunities to keep me. And they said, no, we're good. So I made a decision what was best for me and my family. And I went down to Miami, learned an opportunity to grow down there, not only from a sports perspective, but also even more from a business perspective, being able to be close with Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, and everything in his organization and everything that he has up here in New York with Related Group and all the amazing stuff that they do in this city. So that for me was a turning point of like, I want to be able to control my own destiny, and I want to be in those conversations. And that's really when I sat down. I was like, to have a winning formula for my type of success, I want to have the ability to control where I'm going, who I'm working with, and what that ultimately looks like. And really, I was afforded that in Miami and every other stop after that. And especially as people really understood, like, I'm a team guy. I know how to win. I know how to do certain things. And I'm also open-ended. I'm not afraid to learn from other people. Even to this day, I want to learn from people. So that was a great thing.
And you mentioned this just now, you touched on it. Were there things you took from rookie becoming, a veteran, leadership traits, mentors you may have had, coaches, that you've transitioned into the business world now? Obviously, we'll talk about House of Spears and management company and everything you stood up. Were there traits that you took from the game of football that you were able to transition into the business?
Yeah, there's 100%. I took a lot of traits from football and sports in general, whether it's discipline, focus, understanding how to work with people. I think one of the biggest traits that I took, I learned it from sports, but it's not really something that you would say is typical to come from sports. My guy, Caleb Thornhill, who was a pro player, personnel director in Miami, taught me emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence in this world is, I think, one of the most key things that you can have as an individual, to be able to read people and understand what makes them tick and how you can create a win-win situation. So leaders understand, one, how their emotional intelligence work, but also find ways to make other people's emotional intelligence be brought up and move those things as barriers for them to not have success as a collective. And so those are things that I learned that translated to business, and whether that's me being in a boardroom, having conversations, discussions, learning how to, again, emotional intelligence, persuade and or lay out to somebody. Because most people, like, if I have a conversation with you and I'm yelling and cussing at you versus I pull you to the side behind closed doors and I explain something, that right there just changed the whole dynamic of how we speak and how we interact with each other and how you may respect me. Because I tell coaches all the time, you could, like, if a coach came up to me and say, hey, Coach Caldwell, love this about him. I'm transparent about everything. He was one of my best coaches that I've had in the NFL. We only together 1 year, but he would tell me and give me a heads up, hey, I'm gonna dog cuss you right now in front of the team. And I respected him for telling me that ahead of time, so I'm not just caught off guard, but also, like, I should have the most pressure and be held to the highest bar as one of the leaders if I made a mistake. So it's things like that that I've learned throughout sports that have translated to business.
That's a cool insight into Jim Caldwell and like his coaching style, and it's him being transparent with his top players and how that kind of trickles down to everyone else. Financial literacy in the NFL,
Yeah.
drafted in 2010, you've seen a lot of change both in the rules, play style, but also maybe the modern young athlete.
Yeah.
Has there been a shift from the time you were drafted to the time you were retired of an understanding of financial literacy, a desire to invest or learn more about how to make as much of your earnings last after football?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is you would not be seeing stories like they have of Saquon Barkley and talking about all the different creative things that he's invested in and how he took all of his rookie contract and put it into these different investments, and now he's tripled or doubled that money or whatever it may be. I think when I was coming out in 2010, guys were talking about things in the locker room, video games and what car I got and what I did with this and what I did with that, and trying to be with the Joneses, where guys now in the locker room in the last probably 5 to 6 years have been saying, hey, I'm investing in this stock, I'm investing in this crypto, I'm investing in this, I'm doing this, I'm working with this company, I got equity in this company for this partnership and doing those different things. So the whole landscape has changed, and you got to give a lot of credit to a guy like LeBron James or different things like that that have brought that out as forefront opportunities, but also being creative in this world of how people say, hey, I'm not just going to give you a ton of cash to do an endorsement. And also on the flip side, players being smart and saying, hey, I want to have equity if I'm going to endorse this product and be a part of this. Let me have ownership so I'm really authentic to this and I'm a part of this brand or company.
I love that answer. This is actually a perfect segue to House of Spears.
Yeah.
Management company, your management company. I actually want to know, like, what brought that together? How early into your career did you start to think about that? And how have you seen managing that now? Retired, obviously, you have moved on towards it, but this is actually a perfect segue to what you were talking about.
Yeah, it really started with the ethos of understanding my name, image, and likeness and the value behind it. I was a rare defensive player that was a top draft pick, had deals with Nike and Subway and Sprint and a bunch of different organizations early on in my career. And I basically put my name, image, and likeness over there. And that's where my sister and myself were managing all of that. And I was obviously licensing out my NIL. And so we started to build, and then we started to do equity deals and do different investments and finding ways to grow our family wealth. And so that's something that we continue to do and strive to do, not only as an internal smaller family, but also for future generations of my kids and teaching them how to grow and understand money and financial literacy.
I love that. And, as you kind of move into now retirement and thinking about all of your investments and keeping yourself busy, where are you seeing is it real estate? Is it hospitality? Is it all of the above? Where are you kind of seeing most of your interest kind of gravitate to from a business standpoint?
It's all the above, but every year is different because I do this exercise where we look at focal points. I sit down with my executive assistant, I sit down with my wife, and we have a family manager as well who works on a bunch of different projects for us, which is kind of like our chief of staff. And ultimately, we create where we're at in this lens. And so if you would have looked at my focal points of 2024, you would have saw pretty heavy in real estate, in venture capital, private equity, a small amount. Obviously, my family is always a constant, a big part of that as well. And then also media. And media was a very small part. And I was only doing Sky Sports, and I would only probably do maybe 5-6 weeks out of the year. I didn't have my podcast. I wasn't doing different things, but the podcast was there in the back scene, kind of working on it, thinking about wanting to dive into it. But now you move to 2025, like 50% of that focal point is media. From Sky Sports, I'm having a long-term deal on the table for multi-years, and I have an opportunity with obviously No Free Lunch to expand that and continue to grow that to a much bigger level. I'm heavy on some other social aspects with my team that I'm working with now, and have spun up some different things in and around there. And then I'm still heavy into construction, so that's probably about 25%, and the rest is family and philanthropic things. And some of the things that I do from a philanthropic piece, which I always challenge a lot of people in saying philanthropic doesn't necessarily have to be its own bucket. It can be tied into business and family and everything that you do on your everyday life. Because I could go philanthropic right now, just 2 seconds down the street right when I leave from here. So ultimately, that's kind of how we build our year and our months out in current status, but also in the future.
I have a question on a set of words for you.
Okay.
Words that maybe linemen hate hearing.
Okay.
Personal foul,
Yeah.
roughing the passer, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Yeah.
The rules have changed significantly
Yes.
around that. Obviously, it's always a debate every year. Week one, how are things getting called? Do you have an opinion or a take on how these particular set of rules, whether it's the body weight rule in 2018, Hanson's, whatever it might be, because it changed so significantly from when you were drafted to how you had to play at the end, in terms of, was it too excessive, overreach, or did you understand it? What was your kind of take on all these rules? Because it affected how you played the position.
So being in the heat of the moment was definitely frustrating, and it felt like it was targeted, especially for somebody who came into the league kind of with a lot of thunder and lightning, and for lack of better words. But ultimately, like, I understood that they later on, and again, it goes back to that emotional intelligence, kind of regulating myself and say it's really about player safety. And I don't want to ever hurt somebody, but I also want to impose my will. So how do you figure it out to play on that fine line, still be able to impose your will, but be able to play within the rules. And so, like, if you notice, like, yeah, I hit guys and maybe land on them and roll off of them. Where now there was times like back in the day, I hit Jay Cutler in the back and I'm hitting with it and I'm not landing on him at all, but I'm still getting penalized. So it's like, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. So finding that fine balance of like, all right, now I started picking up guys instead of slamming them. I just hold them up nice and tight and just carry them and just be like, all right, you're my little teddy bear for now. So that's how like you play with the games and you kind of make a joke of it at the end of the day sometimes. And refs I'd butter them up a little bit and obviously learn their names and have conversations with them. And so you have those rapports.
That's hilarious. You just get to know their name, their kid's name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So keep them on your side.
I got you. Okay. Was there a kind of toughest offense you played or you remember that sticks out to you?
Yeah. Sure.
Early or late in your career, however that.
So there was two offenses. Green Bay Packers had a special package just for me where they would have Josh Sitton, who would be their guard. The center would slide to me, and then they would have a tight end and a fullback that would chip me if I were to beat him. So I was getting shots to the ribs and the knees and all types of stuff. So that was not fun. And then I also remember playing against the New Orleans Saints. They had an amazing package they did to everybody where they had double chippers. So it's basically you have your 5 offensive linemen and 2 tight ends and a potential running back and a footballer if you wanted to, and they could all, like, they would block and they could all release at the same time. So it was double chipper protection. It was really built for the wide 9 defense that I was in majority of my career with Chris Kasurk, who's our defensive line coach for the San Francisco 49ers, and Jim Washburn, who was a longtime coach and a close friend that created the wide 9, for lack of a better word. So yeah, those were probably the 2 offenses I hated the most going against.
On the other hand, you can say that there were tailor-made offenses.
Yes. It's a lot of great respect. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And last one in this, a game or a series of playoff games and the many that you played that you weren't sure or you knew would be difficult that you were able to pull through at the end, but you knew coming out of on the other side, you were like, man, that was tough. Man, that was difficult. Maybe you had complete certainty every game you played, but you know, it could have been, we all know how the Super Bowl ended with the Chiefs, but
yeah. I'd be sitting here lying to you to say I have complete certainty of any game. Yeah, that'd be a fad. But I would say probably the most meaningful ones that I remember vividly was 2018, 2019 season playing in LA and getting our butt kicked by the New Orleans Saints early on. I think it was week 8 or 9. That was our first loss of that season. And then seeing how the season was going to unfold, and we knew it right then and there, that week 8 loss or week 9 loss, whatever it was, we're going to have to go back to New Orleans to go beat them to get to the Super Bowl if we wanted to. So going into that game, playing in that dome, like how loud it was, we were like, we got to really band together to figure this one out. And I just had like a spirit in my body. My whole family was there, and like it was one of my best games, and wanting to will my team to a championship. And the moment that the feeling that I got was the same feeling that I had, but a better outcome when I was in 2009 playing for Nebraska in the Texas game, playing lights out, but we came up short. So I played lights out in that New Orleans game, but we won and got to the Super Bowl.
Is Drew Brees elusive?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's one of the best being elusive because he's not a big guy, but he's also very quick and he can move and he's slippery. Like he's sneaky slippery and like can just dump the ball off. And Alvin Kamara, who's been his running back for a good part of his later part of his career, dumping it off to him, getting it away. And like he was just super creative. So a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, love that. I mean, great answers all the way through. Really thank you for joining us today. This has been the winning formula presented by the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. That was Ndamukong Suh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Man, I appreciate it. This was a blast. I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
As did I. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.